It all began when Brandon Torres, a police lieutenant with 15 years on the force, finally moved into his dream home. After years of apartment hopping and overnight shifts, he and his wife, Rachel, had scraped together enough to buy a charming two-story in a quiet suburb called Silver Pines. The kind of place with trimmed hedges, bike-riding kids, and mailbox newsletters that tried way too hard to sound fun. But there was one thing Brandon didn't plan for. Linda Harper. Linda was the president of the HOA, or as folks in the neighborhood whispered, the Homeowner Overlord Authority. Retired real estate broker, still wore heels to check her mail, and believed rules weren't just guidelines, they were gospel. And Linda? She loved control. She'd written most of the HOA regulations herself, and rumor had it she once tried to evict someone for hanging beach towels on their balcony. From the moment the moving truck pulled up to Brandon's house, Linda had her binoculars trained on him like she was watching a suspect in an FBI sting. First, she complained about the color of their doormat. Then, it was the welcome sign not matching community aesthetic standards. A week later, Brandon found a violation notice taped to his trash bin. Apparently, it had been out 5 minutes too early. But Brandon wasn't the kind of guy to start fights. Not yet, anyway. After settling in, he and Rachel planned a small housewarming party. Nothing wild, just family, a few close friends, and yes, a handful of off-duty officers from Brandon's precinct. The backyard was lit with paper lanterns. A classic rock playlist played softly in the background, and Rachel had even made homemade sliders and peach cobbler. It was, by all accounts, a peaceful evening. Until the sirens arrived. 2 squad cars, lights flashing, screeched to a halt in front of the house. Brandon looked up, burger in hand. "That better not be for us," he muttered. But it was. See, Linda had called 911. She told dispatchers that a suspicious gathering was taking place across the street, described seeing men with weapons pretending to be officers, and what she believed might be illegal activity. She even used the words militia-style intimidation. What she didn't know was that nearly every person at that party was law enforcement, and that the man whose house she was reporting was the commanding officer of the very precinct that responded. 2 rookies stepped out of the patrol cars, hands hovering over their holsters. They hadn't recognized the address, and per protocol, they were treating this as a potential threat. For a moment, the backyard froze. Laughter stopped. Brandon stepped forward slowly, badge in hand. "Lieutenant Brandon Torres, Metro PD. This is my home. These are my people." One of the rookies blinked, then spotted his captain across the yard holding a lemonade. His mouth dropped open. "Oh my God, sir, I'm so sorry." The tension cracked into awkward chuckles and nervous laughter. Someone raised a red Solo cup like a peace offering. "First time we've been raided by our own unit." Everyone laughed, except Brandon, because when he looked across the street, there she was, Linda, wineglass in hand, watching, smiling, smug. She actually gave him a little nod, the kind of nod that says, "You're welcome for my civic duty." That night, Brandon didn't sleep. He kept replaying it in his head how easily a peaceful evening had nearly turned into a tactical mess. If one rookie had panicked or failed to recognize someone, a weapon could have been drawn. A kid could have been caught in the crossfire. And all because of one woman who couldn't mind her own business. But this wasn't just HOA pettiness anymore. It was a weaponized abuse of power, a false report, and Brandon wasn't going to let it slide. The next morning, he got to work. He filed an official report detailing the incident, included video from a fellow officer's phone, screenshots from Linda's HOA rants, and the 911 call transcript where she falsely claimed armed impersonators were intimidating residents. He contacted Internal Affairs, not to blame the responding officers, but to flag Linda's call as a civilian misconduct complaint. Then he reached out to someone who really understood how deep this could go. His neighbor, Marcus, a civil rights attorney who'd had his own run-in with Linda when she tried to fine him for painting his front door too warm of a beige. Together, they started digging. Turns out, Linda had filed over 40 complaints in the past year, half to 911, the rest through the HOA's online violation portal. One of them was about a suspicious lemonade stand. Another claimed a lawn flamingo was a sign of extremist ideology. This wasn't an accident, it was a pattern. They built a case, gathered testimonies, talked to neighbors, many of whom had stories of their own. A family fined for sidewalk chalk. A Vietnam vet told to remove his flagpole. A single mum accused of excessive noise because her toddler cried at night. It was control disguised as order, and Linda had been at the center of it all. When the city inspector arrived a week later, Brandon handed him a binder so thick it could stop a bullet. Inside, evidence of HOA fund misuse, fake citations, even receipts for landscaping projects billed to the HOA, but carried out on Linda's private property. That's when things got serious. A temporary injunction was filed. HOA funds were frozen, and Linda, she was served official documents at 7 a.m. Tried to claim the officer was trespassing. He calmly informed her that refusing a court order was a crime. And the community, oh, they were done. A special meeting was called. This time, Brandon didn't need to say much. Neighbors lined up, one by one, to share their experiences. A grandmother broke down as she described being fined for her granddaughter's sidewalk drawings. A father showed photos of his yard before and after Linda forced him to tear out his garden because wildflower aesthetics violated neighborhood order. Linda tried to defend herself, claimed she was maintaining standards and upholding values. But no one was listening. Brandon stood, looked her in the eye, and said calmly, "Linda, you didn't build a community. You built a kingdom. And now it's over." She left the meeting in silence. No threats, no speeches, just a defeated woman holding a binder full of excuses. The next morning, a massive for sale sign appeared in her yard. Rumor had it she moved to a gated retirement community, where the HOA was already trying to discipline her for overwatering her ferns. In Silver Pines, things began to change. The HOA board was restructured. Rules were revised. New guidelines were built on fairness, not fear. Brandon was offered a permanent seat on the ethics committee, but he declined. He said he'd had enough HOA politics to last a lifetime. Still, he agreed to give a talk at the clubhouse about community leadership. He kept it short, light, ended with a joke. Not every housewarming ends in a police raid, but hey, it helps you meet your neighbors fast. The room laughed, loud, real, free. A few weeks later, a mystery package arrived at Brandon's door. No return address. Inside was a tiny toy police badge, a plastic lawn flamingo, and a sticker that read, "Silver Pines Real Sheriff." He never found out who sent it, but he hung it in his garage right next to the first violation Linda had ever sent him for his porch light being too aggressive. Now, it's just a souvenir from the day a backyard party sparked a neighborhood revolution.